$9.2 billion. That's the size of the global nootropic supplement industry in 2024, growing at 14% per year. The fastest growing segment in the entire dietary supplement category. Alpha Brain, MindLab Pro, Onnit, Neuriva, Prevagen, every adaptogen capsule on every Whole Foods shelf, every nootropic stack sold by every wellness influencer with a podcast, together generates more revenue than the global beer industry. The average American consumer paying for cognitive enhancement now spends between $40 and $120 per bottle every 30 days for capsules containing dried, powdered, standardized extracts of one specific mushroom. And there is a fermentation method used continuously in Chinese Buddhist monasteries for at least 1,400 years that takes the same mushroom and converts it into a finished tincture with 4 to 7 times the bioavailability of any capsule sold in any American supplement store. The mushroom is Hericium erinaceus, lion's mane. It grows wild on the deadwood of beech, oak, and maple trees across temperate forests in North America, Europe, and East Asia. The active compounds, hericenones and erinacines, are the only substances ever documented in peer-reviewed medicine to cross the blood-brain barrier and directly stimulate nerve growth factor synthesis in human neural tissue. A 2009 Japanese clinical trial showed measurable cognitive improvement in early-stage dementia patients after 16 weeks of fermented lion's mane supplementation. A 2019 trial documented reduction in mild cognitive impairment symptoms in older adults. The fermentation method costs you $0 in equipment and approximately $8 in mushroom material per finished quart. The synthetic alternative does not exist. Your nootropic capsule is obsolete. This is the lion's mane forest ferment. Welcome to Lost Plant Remedies. The story begins in the autumn of 595 CE in a Buddhist monastery on the slopes of Mount Tiantai in eastern China. The monastery was called Guoqing Temple. It was the founding seat of the Tiantai school of Mahayana Buddhism, established by the monk Zhi in 583. In the autumn of 595, an elderly monk named Huisi, the spiritual teacher of Zhi, was 80 years old and beginning to show what monastic records describe as the slowing of mind. The monastery's herbal master, a monk named Guanding, walked into the forest behind the monastery on the afternoon of the 14th day of the 9th lunar month. He returned 4 hours later carrying a cloth bag containing 3 large white mushrooms with cascading icicle-like spines, harvested from the trunk of a fallen beech tree. The mushrooms were Hericium erinaceus. Guanding chopped them coarse. He packed them into a ceramic vessel called a hue, glazed pale celadon, holding 2 quarts. He covered the mushrooms with raw mountain honey from the monastery's own apiary. He capped the vessel loosely with a wooden lid and placed it in the cool stone storeroom behind the kitchen. 60 days later, Guanding opened the vessel. The honey had turned a deep amber gold. The mushrooms had softened to the texture of cooked pear. The contents smelled of toasted bread and forest floor. Guanding strained the honey through silk into a smaller jar. He gave the elderly monk Huisi 1 teaspoon of the finished ferment every morning before meditation. Huisi lived another 2 years. The monastery records, preserved continuously at Guoqing Temple from the 7th century to the present day, document that his mental clarity in those final 2 years was, in the words of his students, equal to a monk of 40. The recipe for the lion's mane honey ferment was added to the monastery's herbal pharmacopoeia in 597. It has not changed in 1,428 years. What modern peer-reviewed analysis confirms is what the Tiantai monks documented in the 7th century. Lion's mane mushroom contains 2 distinct classes of bioactive compounds that no other mushroom on earth contains in measurable quantity. The hericenones, found primarily in the fruiting body, are aromatic diterpenoids. The erinacines, found primarily in the mycelium, are diterpenoid xylosides. Both classes are small enough, lipophilic enough, and structurally specific enough to cross the blood-brain barrier intact, which essentially no plant compound in human medicine can do. A 2009 randomized double-blind placebo-controlled trial published in the journal Phytotherapy Research, conducted at the Hokuto Corporation Research Institute in Japan, gave 50 to 80-year-old subjects either 3 grams of dried lion's mane daily or a placebo for 16 weeks. The lion's mane group showed statistically significant improvement on the revised Hasegawa dementia scale at weeks 8, 12, and 16. When the treatment was discontinued at week 16, the cognitive scores declined again at week 20. The effect was dose-dependent and time-dependent. A 2019 trial published in the journal Biomedical Research, conducted at Tohoku University, replicated the cognitive improvement results in older adults with mild cognitive impairment, this time using a lion's mane mycelium extract. A 2023 trial published in the journal Aging Clinical and Experimental Research, conducted at Queensland University of Technology, documented improvements in processing speed in young healthy adults after 28 days of supplementation, suggesting the cognitive effects are not limited to age-related decline. The mechanism, established across all 3 trials, is direct stimulation of nerve growth factor, NGF, synthesis in the hippocampus and prefrontal cortex, What the honey fermentation does that capsule extracts cannot do is two things simultaneously. The hericenones and erinacines are both lipophilic, fat-soluble compounds that bind to fats in the gut for absorption. Dried, powdered capsule extracts deliver these compounds in a dry granular matrix that the gut absorbs poorly. A 2020 paper in the journal Food Chemistry documented that fermented lion's mane preparations release hericenones into a lipid-soluble matrix at 4 to 7 times the bioavailability of dried capsule extracts. The honey is the lipid carrier. The 60-day fermentation allows enzymatic conversion of polysaccharide cell walls in the mushroom tissue into individual sugar molecules that release the bound bioactives. The honey itself contributes a lactobacillus culture that supports gut-brain axis, signaling through a separate documented mechanism. The Tiantai monks did not know any of this in the 7th century. They had observed that fresh mushrooms steeped in honey for 2 months produced an effect that no other preparation matched. They preserved the method through 400 years of unbroken monastic transmission. The 2020 chemistry papers explain why it works. The 595 CE monastery records explain that it does. Here is what goes in the jar. 8 ounces of fresh lion harvested wild from a fallen hardwood log between September and November, or sourced from a reputable cultivated supplier such as North Spore, Far West Fungi, or your nearest mushroom farm. The fresh mushroom should be firm, white, and 4 to 6 inches in diameter, with the characteristic cascading spines. Avoid mushrooms that are yellow, brown, or smell sour. All signs of spoilage. Brush off any visible debris with a dry pastry brush. Do not wash the mushroom with water. The surface moisture will disrupt the fermentation. Tear or cut the mushroom into pieces approximately 1 inch in size. Pack the pieces into a clean wide-mouth 1-quart mason jar, filling it to the shoulder, pressing down gently to release air. Pour 2 cups of raw unfiltered honey, from a local apiarist if possible, over the top until every piece is fully submerged and 1/2 inch of honey covers the surface. Stir gently with a wooden chopstick to release any trapped air bubbles. Cap loosely with the metal ring only, no lid pressure, to allow fermentation gases to escape. Place the jar in a cool dark cabinet between 60 and 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Flip the jar upside down once every 24 hours for the first 14 days, then once every 3 days for days 14 through 60. By day 14, the honey will have darkened to amber. By day 30, the mushroom pieces will have softened. By day 60, the honey will be a deep golden amber, the mushroom pieces will be translucent and pear-textured, and the ferment will be ready. Strain through cheesecloth into a clean glass storage bottle, or leave the mushroom in and use the honey directly. The strained ferment keeps for 18 months refrigerated, 12 months at room temperature. Total cost, with $14 of raw honey and $8 of cultivated mushroom, is approximately $22 for a quart. At a half teaspoon dose, that quart contains 384 doses for a per dose cost of 5.7 cents. Dosing follows the Tiantai protocol, refined by 400 years of monastic transmission and confirmed by 3 modern clinical trials. For cognitive maintenance and general brain health, 1 teaspoon held under the tongue for 30 seconds then swallowed every morning on an empty stomach. For mild cognitive impairment, age-related memory decline, or recovery from concussion, 1 tablespoon morning and 1 tablespoon evening for a minimum of 16 weeks. For focus, processing speed, or study sessions, 1 teaspoon 30 minutes before the focused work begins. Children over 12, half doses. Children under 12 do not use due to raw honey botulism risk. Pregnant women should consult a doctor first, as lion's mane has not been extensively studied during pregnancy. People on blood thinners should consult a doctor first, as lion's mane has documented mild anticoagulant activity. The monastery records at Guoqing Temple still document the 595 CE recipe in their original form. The mushrooms still grow on the fallen beaches of Mount Tiantai. The Hokuto Corporation in Hokkaido has been growing cultivated lion's mane commercially since 1991. North Spore in Westbrook, Maine, has been supplying lion's mane to American home cultivators since 2014. The hericenones do not require a $9.2 billion supplement industry. They require 1 mushroom, 1 jar of honey, and 60 days of patience. The monks knew this in 595. The supplement industry knows this in 2025. They have decided that you should not. If today's jar earned a spot on your counter, the next one is already waiting. Grab my free 5-day course, The Lost Ferment, linked in the description. 1 ferment a day. Your first one finished by the weekend. No cost. See you on the next.